There are literally thousands of videos, stories and reviews about the Tesla Model S, and not to mention the seemingly endless supply of drag racing videos of these things embarrassing even the fastest supercars. But what are they like after 5 years and over 100,000 Ks? What goes wrong with them? Are they reliable? And the real question is, should you buy a second-hand Tesla Model S? Now, before we get deep into the Tesla Model S, do us a favor and subscribe to this channel. Maybe throw us a like and hit the bell icon for notifications. And while you're at it, why not go and follow us on Instagram and Facebook? This is a 2016 Tesla Model S75 with 98,000 kilometers on the clock, and that is higher than average, but it actually makes for a really good test case for this particular review. And being a 75 means it's one of the more affordable of the most expensive sedan-shaped Teslas. Now, since the Model S was launched, there have been a plethora of different variants from the original base model 40 all the way up to the top of the performance range P100D. And while we can't go into every graphic detail about absolutely every different spec in this video for obvious reasons, not to mention the immense range of optional extras, we have collected and put all of that info into our handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before you hand over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out in the link below. Okay, did you notice something when we showed you photos of the base model 40 and the top of the range P100D? Yep, they look almost exactly the same. See, visually, almost all Model S's look identical. There was a facelift in 2016, which was pretty much just a change from this to this, but excluding some different wheel packages, if you take the badges off, they all look the same. And that isn't the only issue. See, the Model S was technically Tesla's first mass-produced car, and there are some quality concerns. Firstly, the panel gaps. Look at the difference in the gap, say here versus here, or even here to down here. Now, this car's never been in an accident, but for something that's worth more than $130,000, these should be perfect, and yeah, they're not. Secondly, the door handles. It's super cool that they come out to greet you like that, but these things have failed 5 times. Like, they've still slid out, but to open the door, it hasn't worked, which has meant that for the driver to get into the driver's seat, he's had to go through the passenger door, climb over the center console just to get into the driver's seat. Not cool. Thirdly, this headlight. A few weeks ago, this headlight failed, and because this car is out of warranty, the owner has had to pay for a brand new one. The cost of the headlight, $3,500. $3.5 grand for that. Now, in its defense, an Audi or a BMW or a Jag or a Merc of an equivalent price car, the headlight would probably cost around about the same, but chances are it wouldn't have failed in the first place. In fact, I've got a 1989 Mazda at home, and its headlights have never failed either. Just not good enough. Also, the paint finish isn't quite as good as some of its European rivals, and if it's having all these problems after only 4 years, what else is going to happen in the future? But okay, besides the problems, it's still a really good looking car. This facelifted model definitely is far more stylish than the previous one, and it's definitely got presence on the road. It's a big car, but it looks great. Right, like the exterior, the interior is almost identical right across the range. From sitting here, there's no way of telling if I'm in a P100D or just like a base model 60. And from a design aspect, it's still dominated by this enormous screen, but overall, it still looks quite stylish. It's not quite as modern and stylish as, say, a new Model 3 or Model Y, but yeah, it still looks good. But again, like the exterior, there are a few issues. Firstly, all the leather. Like, this car's only 4 years old, but it's already got that sort of shiny, cheap look to it. All that nice tactility is gone, and it just, yeah, it doesn't feel that good. Secondly, the base of this driver's seat. It's actually broken. Now, the problem is this car is out of warranty, so that part needs replacing. The cost, $1,900. Like, for a car worth this much, the base of the seat really shouldn't break. Not good enough. But besides that, and look, this car has had a bit of a workout of a life, but the interior is just not aging all that well. Like, this center console is a bit squeaky, and all the plastics are looking a little bit rough, and it just hasn't got that same fit and finish that you'd find in like an Audi or a Mercedes. But ignoring all the issues, look, it is a pretty comfortable place to be. Getting the seats in exactly the right position is a breeze, and all the ergonomics are spot on. How's the tech? Guys, this is a Tesla. It is drenched and dripping in tech. The tech's fantastic when it works. See, the problem is, because this screen controls all of your accessories like sat nav, stereo, air conditioning, if it fails, But yeah, the car will drive forward and back and brake and turn, but nothing else works. And this car has had that happen. The screen has failed once. In Tesla's defense, there was a firmware update and it solved that issue, but it shouldn't have failed in the first place because, well, nothing really works in the car, and that's just not good enough when it costs this much money. But besides that little hiccup, everything else has been awesome. From software upgrades which happen wirelessly, adding new features free of charge, and of course, all the Easter eggs, which now include classic Atari video games to keep you entertained while you're charging the battery, and fart sounds that can be directed to different parts of the cabin. Plus, there are all the driving assist features like Smart Summon, Autopilot, and fully adaptive cruise control. And then there's the cabin features like climate control, audio controls, and all the connectivity you'd ever want with multiple USB ports, and the Tesla app, which allows you to unlock and drive your Model S if you don't have your keys. Yes, extremely practical. It is massive back here, and with these rear seats down, it's almost like a little van. Plus, because it's a lift back, this area is huge, so loading stuff in and out is really easy. And actually, the guy that owns this car is a musician, so this has got PAs and guitars and keyboards and drums loaded in and out all the time, and it's wearing really nicely back here. Also, there's even more storage under here, down this side section, and down there. It's massive. Back here, practicality isn't so good. There aren't actually any cup holders and there's no storage area. There are vents for the aircon, but that's about it. In the back, it's still pretty spacious. This seat is in my driving position. I'm 6'2", so legroom is a little bit cramped, but there's heaps of headroom. One noticeable thing is that because there's no traditional transmission, there's no transmission tunnel in the middle. So if you're sitting in the middle, there's still heaps of footroom. It's great. Up front, the practicality is excellent. The storage bins and cubby holes are just huge, so you'll have your phone and wallet and valuables lost in no time. Plus, this car has a frunk or a front trunk, although we're shooting this in Australia and we call this a boot, so it'd be a front boot, so it'd be a foot. Is it safe? Extremely. In fact, the probability of you being injured in a crash on a Model S is the second lowest of any car on the market. And what beat it to the first position? It's the Tesla Model 3. Obviously, it has a 5-star NCAP safety rating, but that is only half the story. The Model S is absolutely packed with safety tech. Cameras, forward radar with ultrasonic sensors, loads of airbags, advanced electronic stability control and anti-lock braking systems. The list just goes on and on. You're probably actually safer driving around in a Model S than you are sitting at home watching Netflix in a onesie made of bubble wrap. It is that safe. So it wouldn't be a Tesla video without the obligatory acceleration test. So does a 75 with nearly 100,000 K still have what it takes to pin you to the back of the seat? Oh, yes, far out. So it's not that brutally being rear-ended by a freight train fast of say like a P100D, and it definitely doesn't have ludicrous mode, but it's still plenty quick enough to scare your mates and embarrass all but the fastest supercars. Rolling acceleration that these things are renowned for certainly hasn't lost anything, and it should take a while for that instant response novelty to wear off. But here's the thing, that novelty, it does wear off. And look, the 75 is still a really quick car, but it's not a driver's car as such. And what I mean by that is with all that power and instant torque going to the rear wheels, this should be a recipe for almost the ultimate driver's car, but it just feels, and especially with nearly 100,000 Ks on the clock, it just feels a bit soft and numb. And the squeaks and rattles they're a bit frustrating when you think about the cost of admission. Now, I'd love to tell you what these things are like as far as servicing, maintenance and upkeep goes, but I'm not a professional mechanic, but our friend Jim is, so over to you, Jim.
Tesla Model S. As Adam alluded to, the build quality is a bit shit, inside and out. They rushed it. I get asked a lot about the batteries in Teslas. It's likely that they'll be no problem at all. Toyota Prius batteries go forever, and it's probably safe to say the Tesla ones will as well. Although they probably get a bit more load on them, but I reckon they've got it dialed in. They're going to be fine. Besides that, mechanically, there's not a lot to do. They'll wear out tyres and suspension bits. Other than that, there's no engine to service. I don't expect I'll probably make any money out of Teslas ever. If you want to know more about the good and the bad with Tesla Model S, grab one of the cheat sheets.
Here in Australia, you can pick up a high kilometre Model S 70 or 85 for as low as 60 grand, all the way through to later year model P100Ds with all of the optional bells and whistles for around about the 150 grand mark. When it comes to charging at home here in Australia, a full charge on a Model S will cost approximately $25. As far as charging on the go, Tesla charge 42 cents per kilowatt hour to use their superchargers, which means it will cost around about $31.50 to recharge a Model S with a 75 kilowatt per hour battery. How often you require that full charge will obviously depend on how often and how enthusiastically you drive, but here's a tip. Charge it at home during off-peak times and that cost could almost halve. Another great thing not only about the Model S but about all EVs is due to the lack of, well, a traditional engine, you'll avoid many traditional servicing costs as actual mechanical maintenance should be pretty minimal. Plus, because these cars use their electric motors for braking as well as accelerating, the cost and frequency of replacing brake pads and brake rotors should be less. But, as we discussed earlier, this car has already had some very costly repair bills and chances are they'll just keep occurring, so maybe the savings in traditional running costs will be offset by the costs of bits and pieces falling off. So should you buy a second-hand Tesla Model S? Well, sort of. Here's the thing, for what Model S's are asking for on the used car market, you can buy a brand new Model 3, which has, well, hopefully a better build quality, has a more modern design, drives and performs extremely well, and has the absolute latest tech. So the sensible decision would be, no, don't get a used Model S, go buy a brand new Model 3. But what if you need the extra size and practicality of the Model S and the Model 3 for whatever reason just doesn't float your electric boat? Well, then should you get one? Well, no, because you should just wait a few months and get a Model Y instead. But what if you don't want an SUV looking car and you want a Tesla right now, but you haven't got the cash for a brand new Model S? Then should you get a second-hand one of these? Well, okay, yeah, but which one? Well, the bargain of the range in terms of it still impresses your friends' levels of performance, but makes for great value for money is arguably the pre-facelift and slightly older tech P85, which can now be had for as little as 65 grand here in Australia. But if you want all the latest styling and almost all the latest tech, get one of these, get a 75. Short of the mind-bending acceleration and some of the fancy tech bits that like a P90D of the same vintage has, you can get one of these for tens of thousands of dollars less than a P90D. That's right, in Australia, 75s are now going for around about $90,000, where an equal vintage P90D is still 140,000 bucks. Our advice, save yourself 50 grand and find a 75, then grab a hairdryer and melt the badges off the back and then spend a fraction of the money you've saved on some slightly more stylish wheels. A Tesla Model S 75 is all of the electric car you'll ever need. But put like 10 or 15 grand aside because you're gonna need to pay for everything that will definitely go wrong with it. But besides that, it's good.